Hey, Amber. Hey. I think it mutes you automatically.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi.
Hiya.
How are you?
I have a feeling for the first part I'm going to be, because I basically have my computer and my husband's computer because they made us delete Zoom at work, like just after I launched all of this. And I have a feeling I'm going to have a lot of text messages and Facebook messages asking for the password.
Mm-hmm.
So I might be dealing with that a little bit, but I'll get us started and I'll show the tablet and a few things, and I'm going to hand over to you. I know you said about showing support materials and stuff. If you could really flag up the further guidance document.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll get that up right now.
Awesome. Okay, have you got a picture of Kiss in the background?
Unfortunately, no, but that does look like that. No, it's a modern German artist. No. That would have been amazing. Actually, that was like my grandmother gave me a Kiss doll for my 6th birthday, and that's like my favorite Christmas picture of all time. I'm like, I don't think she knew what it was, but it's
you
amazing.
Need to get a picture of Kiss that goes next to that picture.
I know, right?
Okay.
Right. Okay, yeah, we'll get there. All right.
Cool.
Shut this. Oh, here we go. Hello.
Welcome. We've got about, I think, almost 90 people joining us. There were about 200 people that sign up. Hopefully we won't hit the 100, because at 100 is when we can't let anyone else in. We do have another meeting on April 20th though. So just wait for these people to pop on in, and then I will share.
Just to, I can see a few people are needing to go for various reasons. To give you a bit of a heads up, we will start the wrap office, or we'll conclude about 10 minutes. So if you've got any.
Hi, hello.
I can't quite hear you guys. What I'm going to do is share my screen. What I would love for everyone to do is hop into the personal project Padlet and introduce yourself. So there's an introduce yourself note already started, and in the comments, if you put where you are from, who you are, and what you teach. Amber's co-hosting me. Amber, can you put that link into the chat?
I can, yes.
Awesome. And just for those who are joining, we are recording this. We'll put it on the site later. And then Amber's also going to host another one on April 20th.
Yeah.
So everyone should have a link to the Padlet and should be able to comment and say who they are and where they're from. So you should be able to see that in the chat window, and everyone can log in there. I think it's gone back to my screen. So if you guys see that there's a green post, if you reply there instead of starting a new chat, just because it will fill up too much. So just in the, so Saley, if you do the in a reply to this big green post that's there. Kriti as well, if you can do it in the reply to the big green post. So you should see a green post. I'm going to delete that. There's also a place to do your burning questions. Okay, and I can see we've got Veronica from Argentina living in Brussels, Rosalinda Lima from Portugal, who's working in Shanghai, who's already shared loads of resources on the Padlet. We've got Amber, who's also in Germany, but works over in Ghana. Fanny from Uruguay, Milagros from Uruguay, Asheka, the wonderful Asheka from Mumbai. I can see more and more people jumping in. Again, Honey, Chatal, Love, please reply to the green post instead of starting a new in the Padlet. You should see a light green post that says introduce yourself, reply there. So thank you everyone for coming today. The whole point of these Zooms is that it's kind of a discussion where we're sharing ideas, sharing resources, asking questions, but it's not like a webinar, or it's not us being the experts who are giving you the information. So we want everyone to participate as much as possible. If you click the participant button at the bottom of your screen, you'll see that when you click that, on the right-hand side, I think a list of participants turns up, and then it says raise hand. So as we get the discussion going, if you want to share something, please press that button, and then myself or Amber will see. It works much better than us all talking over each other. I know that Amber has got an agenda set up, so I'm going to pass over to Amber.
Great, thanks so much, Lenny. How wonderful this is. There's 100 people in this meeting right now, and that's about, I think that's as many as we're allowed, so that's great. I've also set up a second one for April 20th, so any of your colleagues or if anybody that couldn't make this one today, that will be on the Google site that Lenny shared earlier. And there are some wonderful, wonderful Zoom meetings happening, and I feel like there's some great conversations happening right now. We have some people in here who have led or will be leading their own Zoom meeting. So that's great to see all of these faces and some familiar faces here. So those who don't know me, my name is Amber Reinhardt. I've been an MYP teacher for 20 years now. I'm a personal project examiner, coordinator. I'm a MYP workshop leader and a site visitor, and I'm currently the personal project coordinator in Lincoln Community School in Accra, Ghana, and I see some of my Ghanaian colleagues here too. So that's great to see you all today. So I thought if there is an agenda up on the Padlet if you want to sort of have that as a split screen to see that as well. We will definitely have a lot of time for sharing. And again, my job here is more of a facilitator than it is sort of an expert. But if you do have some burning questions, put those on the Padlet and we can try to answer those for you, or at least direct you to where we can find answers. But just a reminder that the new uploading date is May 20th. There was some confusion with some of my own colleagues about that, that it has been switched back and switched forward, but I was just on the IB website today, and it certainly is still May 20th for personal project. So we thought we'd start off with those people who still have standardization to do in their schools that they weren't able to standardize before we went on to online learning or before their campuses were closed, and kind of either what questions they have or what concerns they have or how they've tried to problem solve. So does anybody have any ideas about virtual standardization? I think, Lenny, can you, there are so many people on the list. It's really hard.
So I know a few people were saying in the chat they couldn't hear. Hopefully that's solved now. My situation is that we had done our exhibition, the kids had done their reports, and individually our students had graded, the teachers had graded the reports. This year is the first time that I didn't get supervisors to grade their own reports. I had people grade 2 reports anonymously. Like sometimes the kid called their project Daniela's cookbook, so they would know, or they cited themselves so they would know. And then they gave me the grades. And then we were supposed to meet and have this moderation where we come together and we discuss them. And then any discrepancies I was going to be the third moderator, same with the MYP coordinator. We broke up before this happened, our school split. So I basically went through every single report as a third moderator. And it's interesting because I think some people were given 8, 8, 8, 8, some people were giving 2, 2, 2, 2 to the same report. And I guess when we normally have those moderations at school, maybe the teacher who's less confident with the MYP, they just quickly side with the person who's more experienced. And then maybe they're still not kind of coming to this agreement, I just siding with one person or the other. So it's interesting for me to see like these big discrepancies. So then I was like, those ones I basically had to also go through and grade. So it did take a long time, but this is only going to happen this year, right? And it actually helped me see like who needs a little bit more support, who needs a little bit more help. I now just have the uploading stage to do, but I'm pretty done, so I'm very happy. Hopefully everyone else is not stressed about the situation.
Okay, I would like to say something. right now I'm not in an MYP school, but I'm helping another school where the teachers do not know. They are very new to the MYP, and they do have samples for personal project. So they just asked me if I could help them with moderation. So what we have done is they have shared those reports to me, and I have another friend who is also an experienced MYP teacher. So between us, we are moderating. We have made a spreadsheet where we are saying that for this particular, suppose it is criteria A, strand 1, strand 2, strand 3, what are the grades are we giving, what is she giving and what am I giving. We are writing it separately, and then we are making a comment why we are saying so that particular grade, and then we plan to sit and chat on a Zoom meeting or on a conference call, and then come up with that particular grade. And then we would tell the teacher also of that other school also to grade it, and then we would have that discussion with that teacher. So this way we are trying to help standardization of that personal project.
So it sounds like, Ashaka, that you're basically going through the same process, but just trying to do it virtually. And I think that's really important. I think one thing, like, we were lucky enough to have in-school standardization. It was just right before, even like 3 days before my campus closed, that we did our standardization. But one of the things that we kept on coming back was just really, really focusing on those command terms, and making sure that when you use the further guidance with a personal project, that you're focusing on those command terms and not trying, you talked also about justifying them and making comments on why. And we had a long conversation about what comments should look like when you are able to justify the levels of the personal project. And one thing that I noticed that a lot of teachers do is they just use the strand descriptor, which is not a justification, right? It's circular logic, right? Like, the sun is not in the sky because it's in the sky, right? You didn't get a level 3 because you got a level 3. And so really going back to the evidence that's in the personal project to justify why that level was there. And that really, just that instruction, I feel like, helped with the quality of conversations that were happening, and really, and the understanding of how we score personal projects. So does anybody else have anything else to share about virtual standardization or any standardization tips or questions in general?
I would also like to add something. Sorry. What happened was last year when Radha was the MYP coordinator, what she did was she had an orientation with the teachers, saying that, okay, if it is criteria A, strand 1, strand 2, strand 3, then for strand 1, where do we look at, for getting the evidences. So if I'm looking at strand 1, then where should I look in the personal project, whether it should be the personal project report or whether it should be the 10 excerpts that are there. So where should we look? So that kind of orientation also helped us, the teachers also, to understand and to grade strands accordingly.
Hi, I have a question. Like, if my student is submitting me a product video, and in that he's giving me some evidences, but the reference is given in the report, but in the appendix, the evidences are not there. So do I need to consider those evidences as the part of appendix or evidences, or the child has to put the evidences as the part of appendix only?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear the entire question about the evidence bit. I missed that. Lane, did you hear the whole question? I feel like
yeah, I'll just repeat my, am I audible now?
Yeah.
My question is that the child has given the reference that something, like while doing a brainstorming, but that brainstorming evidence is not available as a part of appendix. Appendices is not there, but that is there in the part of the product, what he's submitting, that 10-second video, what he's sending us, in that it's visible. So do we consider that as an evidence, or it has to be explicitly the part of my appendices?
So for me, I really always stress, like, you need to have an appendix at least for every single strand, okay? And then they also can't just say, I did loads of research, see appendix 1, and then it's standalone. It has to have some evidence in the body of the report, and then the appendix is a backup, right? Like if I was talking about an interview, I would still put a quote or two from the interview in the report, then have the full interview in the appendix. So I really push that, and I push them to refer to those appendices. Now, they might not always be able to fit everything, right? Like they have 10 pages, which could be 3 entries per page. But say, for example, when they're doing their criterion A strand 3, that's a lot of work. If they have to show the multiple sources, that they've explicitly evaluated multiple things, that they might have evidence in their actual process journal, which includes interviews, source evaluations, brainstorms for interviews, analysis of products. So what I get them to do then, and they must have at least evidence of 1 or 2, but they could also say other things I did along the way were, I analyzed products, including this water bottle, so I decided to make my water bottle also pink. So as long as they're giving me the actual example and describing it, instead of just saying, I analyze products and moving on, I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt, as long as they have at least 1 appendix for every strand. In the further guidance document, which I think is awesome, it does have task-specific clarifications for every single strand, and then it gives examples of what process journal entries you could be looking for. So I think that's really helpful. A document that I've started working on and that Amber has helped me with, if you look at the Padlet, it's got a purple background. It's called the Incomplete PP Guide Doc. And when you open that, you'll see that it has every single strand, and I've pulled all that information from the further guidance. So it has the descriptor of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 6, alongside task-specific clarifications. Then it has the command terms for every single strand. Then it has things that they could have in their process journals, and it also has reflection questions that will help them. So I think this should steer them towards using evidence. But even, I say this a million times, I still get kids who say, I did some research and it really helped me, and then I did some more research. And they don't tell me what it is or show me. Give them the benefit of the doubt where you can, but they need to show the evidence.
I just want to clarify, as an examiner, how much weightage is given to the product, that short video that we submit? How much weightage is given to that part?
Amber, you're muted still.
Thank you. Sorry. I've got my kids running in and out. I'm sure as all of you have as well. They also have their own Zoom meetings with their teachers. So, and they're like 5. So that we're trying to work on that too. I apologize. That's why I'm muted. But as far as the evidence is concerned, for the examiners itself, the evidence is only used that the student did the product that they set out to do. All we're doing is looking to see that it matches the goal and it was what they said it would be. There's no way that we can sort of score the product. I believe it's like C2 for the product. That actually should be done by the supervisor and the student itself. That one strand should really be done by them, because there's no way that we can look at, I had some students do 20-minute documentaries on, on Alzheimer's, and there's no way that you're going to catch that in a 30-second clip. So it's just to make sure that it matches the goal. I also saw another question in here. Sorry, there's a lot just going on here. But there was
while you're
one,
looking for that, I will remind you that on the Padlet, it has like a big GIF of SpongeBob blowing out flames. If you add your questions there, it will really help us.
Yeah, it's just there's so much going on in this strand. So yeah, if you add your questions to the Padlet, we can follow that a lot more. Is there anybody who has any more comments or questions about standardization, or how maybe people have standardization that's been working in their school that really works? Lenny mentioned about anonymizing reports, and I've found that is not only have you you've pre-anonymized them to what goes up on IBIS, but it really helps with that bias that can come out with our supervisors. I don't allow my supervisors to score, allow them, but I don't have them in the same groups of scoring their own students. They're all in different groups. We all mix them up so that supervisors are not, they're not scoring their own students. So that has helped a lot with the levels that we've seen.
Amber, there is a question from Miss Sharma, who's at Pathways World School. I don't know if that's the one in Noda. If it is, it's a very good school. And she's wondering about, those kids that do really good work. Maybe their product is amazing, their process journal is amazing, but they just flop on the report, which happens in design and happens in personal project a lot. Any advice for that?
Yeah.
I had one question regarding standardization. Last year, or rather, before this lockdown and all, there was one child who, the supervisor gave her somewhere around, say, a 6. Then there was standardization done by 2 teachers. So one gave him or her a 4 and the other gave a 2. So there was so much of variation in the grading. It was really very difficult to understand where the disconnect was, because each had a justification for their grading.
Are
So
you doing
how do you go about such a situation?
Are you doing a yearly standardization session with your supervisors?
Yes. So what happens is, once the supervisor has graded and sent across, then we have a joint standardization session.
So before that, what we do, even before the kids have handed in their final report, is we take a sample from like last year, and we don't actually standardize the whole report. I just pick out like 2 or 3 strands that are from 3 different reports. So 1 strand from 3 different reports with different strands, and then I get them to standardize it, and we get to do it in a big group until we decide. And then when we decide, like this example of criterion A strand 1 was a 4, this example of criterion C strand 2 was a 6, and this criterion D strand 3 is a 2, then we have that as a standard, so I can always compare it. So if there is that discrepancy, I say go back and look at that standard. Even though we haven't done it for every single strand, they can still kind of look, okay, what explaining means, what justifying means, what evidence means.
So essentially what you're suggesting is that the teachers should be taken through a session where they're actually shown samples and guided on how exactly to go about grading projects.
Exactly. And what I do is when I do that, I pick out the ones that are tricky to mark. Like I pick out one where someone is really good at blagging. They sound like, oh yeah, I did so much stuff, but they could have written that morning, right? Or like for me, the hardest strands to grade are like the one about the learner profile, because it's really hard not to make that sound superficial. So I find examples of that. I haven't had as much time with my kids in this school as I did in my last school, but I want to start doing this with my students as well. I think it will really help. Especially they read the ones that are like waffle and they think it's good, but it's...
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Sorry, Lenny, can you go back to the question that you had asked before?
So it was, let me find it. It was from Sharma at Pathways World School, and it was talking about what happens if a student has done awesome all year, for excellent projects to learn, their report's great, their product is great, their process journal is great, but then their report not so much.
No, great. If everybody could just mute themselves, that'd be very helpful for us for the audio as well. And I mean, I think one of the things that is so particular and unique about the personal project is that nowhere else do we ask students to really write about their process, right? I mean, the extended essay is a format that is very familiar for our students, right? They've been writing essays for a while, or the PYP, the exhibition is something, they're very familiar formats for us. And as far as our other assessments are concerned in the MYP, we don't really ask them to really lay down their process and analyze their process. So I feel like one, the format is very different, and then the standardization is really different. Sorry?
Apart from design, because it's really similar to personal project.
Okay, good. Those of us are not design teachers. But then nowhere else do we ask an entire faculty of multiple subjects to come together and try to standardize. I have the sun coming through. And so I think the process is really difficult. So then you get the student who's done this amazing work, and then they can't put it through then on paper. So I think you could look at alternative forms, right? Would your students benefit from doing a presentation or the oral report more than doing the written report? So offer that as an option, which does mean more work from you. It means more work from your supervisors. It means more work for the coordinator itself, but it is beneficial. I know anyone. I see you. And then, but then also that part of the process is what matters, right? I think we spend so much time working through the product, but then we forget the report is what what is scored, and it is how they are evaluated. So we need to spend more time on that report, and that's what I would suggest to you. As a coordinator, I look at all criterion A from all of my students. Like I look at that first section, the investigating section, and that comes through me first, just to make sure that like the students know what the standards are, they know how to follow the guide, and that they know sort of how to write their report. It's unbelievably time consuming, but it's highly beneficial. So I don't know if those help. Lenny, I know you had something you wanted to add.
I'm just going to add one thing, and then I'm going to just say a few people have got their hands raised, and I'm going to read some of the questions from the Padlet. Originally, the video, I tried to do that a few years ago, and actually to talk about all this in 13 to 15 minutes and show all the evidence is really hard. But actually, I had one student this year who I'm so proud of him. He's on a learning support plan, and what I did was I made a Google slide, and each slide had the strand, and he had to type his script below. So the first thing he did was record him saying, write everything he had there, and he had to fit it into that time. And then he went into iMovie, and over that video, he was putting all his evidence from his process journal, and he did so good. So don't be afraid to do the video. I really like it. Okay, the next one was, I'm sorry if I pronounced this name wrong, Milagros Videla from somewhere, I can't remember where. He asked about putting the evidence in the body of the report. So originally I thought that we were not allowed to do this, but in the further guidance document, it does say like if you put an image in the report, it counts towards your appendices pages. So say you put an image in your report that is half a page, then you have 9.5 pages left at the end. So now I let my kids put the criteria in there, and they can put a photograph of their final product as well. They should be able to reference the appendices. Teachers, if it is referenced properly, examiners, teachers, whatever, will look at the appendices. I know that it's easier to just read it as a free flow, but do encourage them to learn that skill. Shall we hand over to someone who's got their hand raised? Maybe Shiraz, if you want. I'm going to unmute yourself. It doesn't let me unmute you, I'm afraid. Shiraz?
Yes. Yes, Shiraz. I just want to ask you how much help we can, we can help our personal project students. How much help we can give them?
Hi, Shiraz. It's lovely to see you.
Yeah, how are you, Amber?
Good. So I think, there is a guide of 25 hours is what they say for the personal project. Where that 25-hour comes from, that's sort of for them as well. Like the extended essay has a very specific, I think it's 3 hours that the supervisors is allowed to spend with them. And then for the students, 25 hours for the personal project. There are 3 required meetings for the supervisors, but again, I don't think that's enough. And I don't think that's, there's certainly, like, my students see my supervisors about 5 times. And then I put my timeline in the Padlet as well. So you can see I have sort of workshops for my students. I have a full 8-hour retreat day with my students. And then I have workshops sort of throughout. I also teach all the grade 10s. And I know that some schools have, they have like 1 30-minute a week where they go and they check in, and it may not be sort of a teaching time, but it's certainly a work time for them. I find the idea that students should work on the personal project 25 hours, I find that unrealistic. Actually, I don't know if they can do the quality of the project, the quality of the research, making the product, and then writing that report in that amount of time. I find that that's an unrealistic expectation to put on.
The new version, I think, is 20 hours, but it is much shorter. It's half the word count. It's only 3 criteria, 2 strands each, so it should be much more manageable. But you will always have those kids who make it like the biggest project of their life.
One more question, Amber.
Yes.
One more question. When should they start written statement? Once the product has done, or like simultaneously they can do that?
When should they start?
No, I mean like the written statement. Right? So when should they start? Simultaneously while they are doing it, the process and product, or once they done the product, then they should start.
Okay, so I'm going to answer this question, and then I'm going to let Lenny. I know people have had their hands raised for a while, and we have less than 10 minutes remaining, or fewer than 10 minutes remaining. So I'm going to give people. But for me, you can look at my timeline again that I shared on the Padlet. I do it together. So when they finish the research process, then we start writing the draft of the investigating part. And I think we do investigating and do planning. And then when they're done their product, then they go on to write, they write the last 2 sections. And I think that's part of it, because that the investigating section is fresh on their minds when they're done their research, so that it's good for them to start processing that and analyzing that. So I do combination as we go through. So sorry, Lynn, there was a couple more hands up. I can see that from right now too. No.
So Farah, if you unmute yourself. If not, then Arvinda.
Yes, I'm here. Farah is here. I just want to, I understand the number of hours you were trying to, from the teacher's side. But if it's more than that, in the beginning of the project or somewhere in the middle, a student is seeking some guidance or, holding hands, So as a supervisor, are you allowed to actually hold that hand and, guide them on the right path? Or, they're on their own?
I would say for me, like the way that I do it is they just have those required meetings. One of the things I'm strict about is that supervisors are only allowed to give feedback on one draft. They can't keep giving feedback. However, when I partner the supervisors, I don't have a free-for-all sign-up. I partner people with, like say I have a kid who's really bad at time management and never hands anything in, their supervisor is probably going to be their homeroom teacher. Or say I have a student who is phase 1, 2, or even 3 English, probably their supervisor will be their EAL teacher. So there's other ways you can build on that support that they maybe don't even realize they're getting additional support. And then with our learning support students, they also have time with the learning support teachers to write it. Now it's not done for them. It's like a, hey, you need to come and spend some time doing this, like giving kind of giving them that push. But yeah, you can obviously support people more. The thing to be strict about is that one piece of feedback on the report. Isn't the guide, the way it's written, the guide is weird. It's like, oh, it's a suggestion that it's only ethical to give feedback once, but doesn't say it's a rule. But yeah, you can definitely help them. I mean, you would help your kids, you differentiate in your class and give extra support to kids who need it, right?
Yeah, just a little push, just a pat on their back, just to keep them going.
Yeah, exactly. So it can be like, that's why I do it. So my really independent kids, they might have a supervisor they've never met before, has not been a teacher they don't see. Whereas my kids who are maybe a little bit of a rascal, they'll have a supervisor they have a class with 3 times a week, right? That kind of helps. Amber, I don't know if you can still hear us, but you're completely frozen.
I don't know. Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you, but you're just frozen on the screen.
Say, my computer screen is I can't even escape right now. But I can hear you. I can hear you for sure.
So I'll pass over to someone else with their hand raised.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes.
While we're on the subject of supporting our students, I'm just wondering, what do we call a challenging goal? Because one problem which I have faced in the 5 years that I've been supervising children, they are just not able to frame what we call a challenging goal. And honestly, I also am not very clear what exactly are we looking for.
So in the further guidance, I like that it points out that they should in their report say why it is personally challenging to them. So if they're EAL, they can say that. If it's something they've never tried before, they can say that. What I always do when I get them to have their goal is I say, okay, and now what? And now what? Okay, like, so who's going to learn from your goal? Okay, you want to make a cookbook? Okay, why don't you sell the cookbook and raise money for charity? Why don't you do a cooking lesson for teachers at school? You know, keep trying to push them to not just have their original goal, but keep making it further. Because they're going to think about something that is simple. Often they'll think about something that someone did the year before. They'll think a personal project is a cookbook, or a personal project is building a PC. They don't challenge themselves further, so just keep pushing them. Okay, so who else is going to see this apart from your supervisor? Who could you raise money for any charity for this? Could it link to raising awareness for something? Keep giving them those things at the very beginning. You can even build it into the proposal. I know that in the guide it has some questions like what impact do you want the project to have? I try and always get them to put a service element, like it has to raise awareness of something or it has to help others, and that makes it a little bit more challenging as well. But really in the further guidance is about them justifying exactly why the goal is challenging.
Let me give you an example. Now, one of the students made a series of YouTube videos teaching other children how to make a low-cost PC at home. Now, I couldn't really figure out what could be challenging in that, because he is somebody who's very good with computers.
Yeah, I just want to interrupt there. Can you hear me? All right. Yeah. Is that particularly with the challenge part, as long as the student can identify why it's challenging and has justification for that, we can't judge that. Right?
Oh, all right.
Like, we
It's
can't
all about
judge
being
whether or
able to
not-
justify.
No, excuse me. Like, we can't judge the challenge for that student. If the student has identified it and justified it, then I can't say, oh, that's not challenging, or that doesn't seem very difficult for you. Like, if the student's identified it, then we need to trust that response and give them credit for it.
And if outside of the report, outside of grading, if you wanted to push that kid further and you know that he's already good at those things, give him something that's out of his control. Say you need to get 1,000 subscribers so that you can monetize your YouTube, or you need to get your YouTube channel reviewed on 3 blogs. Like, you can give them stuff to make it actually personally challenging, which will motivate them, but that doesn't come into the grading part. I think we only have about 3 minutes. I'm going to hand over to John, because I think John's had his hand up for ages.
Thank you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I have a question for you about standardization and grades. So do you do your standardization process before uploading the grades to IBIS? And the question is, well, the other question is, what grades do you upload? The ones the ones that of the standardization process, or the ones that originally have
So
been given by the
standardization process is nothing to do with the current report. Standardization you do before this year's reports are given to teachers. That's when you set the standard. So you can use a sample that you found online. You can use a sample for last year. So that happens first. And then the moderation, I always get the moderation done for all of the reports before we upload. Because when you upload, I have like, I don't know, 60 kids this year. You're uploading the total number out of 32 for all of those kids, and then that will generate your random sample. If you have not done the moderation and they say, okay, we want this one that you've awarded a 32, and actually you look at it after and you're like, oh, this is actually a 5 or 18, it's going to drop all your grades down. You want for them to look at your grades and say, yes, I agree with this, so it doesn't change your grading at all, right? That's a big problem that happens in a lot of schools. You don't want to tell your kid you got a 7 and then it gets down to a 5. So really make sure you moderate before you upload anything. So standardize, get the reports in, everyone grade them individually, and then moderate and then upload.
And remember, as far as the moderation process is concerned, you're not giving a 1 through 7 score. You're giving an A level, a B level, a C, and a D level. The 1 through 7 scores for personal project change depending on the cohort.
I think you just upload the number out of 32, right?
Yeah. So you need to think about it from the criterion level and not from as a 1 to 7.
Ms. Amber, this is Archana here. Can you just, expand on what were you saying about grading students with A, B, C, D? Because that sounds very interesting.
Well, these would be the criterion levels for each of the 4 criteria of the personal project itself. That's all that you are moderating when you send off your scores to IBIS. Like you're not giving a final 1 through 7 score because we don't know what the grade boundaries are for the personal project yet.
Thank you.
We do give them, like in my school, we do give them like a predicted grade out of 7, but they know that it could change. So if one year, and they're kind of annoyed about it. Sometimes they want to have it as